We're Laura and Cindy, and you're listening to the Holistic Horsemanship and Husbandry podcast, where we talk about natural horsekeeping and deepening your connection with your horse. I'm Laura, your horse care mentor. I teach natural horse management practices after working with over 200 horses and seeing how current industry standards are compromising the health of the horse.
And I'm Cindy, your horsemanship mentor, offering a proven and unique approach to creating deep connections with your horses from 20 plus years of experience, including working with wild Mustangs. If you enjoy this conversation, please leave us a 5-star review wherever you're listening to us so we can get this podcast into the ears of more passionate horse people.
So today we are talking about taking on an abused or neglected horse and helping that animal heal and overcome what they've been through. This is something that both Cindy and I have seen a lot. Cindy in the wilds. Wild horses go through a huge trauma when they get pulled off the land. And so any wild Mustang automatically falls in that category. And me working at various rescues for the last decade, that's how I got my start in horses. So sometimes you willingly take on a horse with a traumatic past and you know you're doing it. And you sign up for whatever that brings. Other times, sometimes you pay good money for a horse, only to realize later that maybe it wasn't totally represented to you accurately, or maybe that animal has changed hands enough times where legitimately nobody knew. And all of a sudden you are seeing a trauma response and realizing that your horse has PTSD, mentally, physically, or emotionally. So what do we do when we find ourselves in that situation?
I have a fondness in my heart for horses who are experiencing trauma. It might have to do with my childhood filled with trauma, and horses were my anchor. And so I have noticed over the years of being around horses in veterinary medicine, in training, in equine assisted therapy and growth, to working with the Mustangs, to actually having a severely traumatized horse in my own herd. I get them. I understand the triggers that other people don't necessarily recognize. And then having gone through some pretty serious injuries with my own beloved RC, that has created my own trauma that I've had to learn to overcome, and recognizing triggers like the first time I went to halter up after having a severe accident, or having a horse get near my head after having a triple brain bleed. You know, those triggers are real, and you don't see them coming. And the next thing you know, you're in full blown fight or flight. The horse who stands out most for me in this conversation today is my beloved Gino, who is he will be 26 on July 4th. And I first met him when he was 3 years old. And I was called out to do an animal communication session with him by an elderly lady. She was 65 at the time when she bought this 3-year-old Tennessee Walker. Her trainer bought him at a horse show. He was raised by the Amish. Good, bad, or indifferent on that one. And he was amazing when I did the communication session with him. He was funny and outgoing and confident and happy and innocent and curious. And then as the years went by with this trainer and this person who knew nothing about horses and riding, a 65-year-old beginner on a 3-year-old, what the trainer didn't recognize. And I find this in a lot of horses who have become traumatized, spooky, unpredictable, afraid of people. Where it starts is some horses, like people, are high sensitives. They don't need heavy-handed. They don't need loud voices. They need consistent, calm, and time to process in between their training, what they're learning. And for somebody who hasn't developed the concept of feel, they will be more than the horse needs. Too much energy, too fast, too hard. And it literally scares a sensitive horse. Like, what? What am I doing wrong? And then the inexperienced person perceives that as a horse that's misbehaving
Yeah.
and needs to be shut down, which for any horse, that's the last thing they need. But for a high sensitive, that breaks their confidence, it breaks their curiosity, it makes them go within. And it took,
Completely severs the communication between the horse and the human.
yeah,
They will
it,
immediately just go, I have to go into self-preservation mode because this human is freaking clueless.
exactly. And they check out. They
Yes.
like people mistake them as being calm,
Hmm.
but really what they've done is gone within themselves, like a traumatized child. They go within and block out the world because that's how their autonomic nervous system survives the stimulus. So when I met Gino at 3, then I was called back at 7 because in between that time, the trainer made a really bad call and took this woman and this green sensitive horse out on a trail ride at the back of the string, and everybody started trotting off, and this little horse started trotting off, and this woman started gripping to hold on. Predator on top of a prey animal gripping where a mountain lion would be gripping. He freaked. She fell off and shattered her wrists. The trainer, rather than going, ha, deemed him crazy and said, put him down.
Oh no.
The woman couldn't bear to do that, so she sent him out to a 40-acre pasture where he lived isolated for 4 years before she called me because the property had sold and she didn't know what to do with this horse because she didn't want anybody else to get hurt, but she couldn't bring it to her to put him down, so she called the animal communicator back out. And it was heartbreaking. And what Gino had said was to leave him alone. He was a throwaway horse.
Oh.
And I might cry because it still breaks my heart. I'll never forget that day. He so badly wanted to connect with me, but he was so convinced that he was a throwaway horse that every time he bonded with anybody from the day he was taken from his mom, that they threw him away and somebody else took him and then they threw him away. And here he was out in this pasture. And I explained to him that the property had sold. He had to go somewhere. And would he give me a chance that he wasn't a throwaway horse and to let me prove it to him? And that was the beginning of it. And so I got him when he was 7 and he'll be 26. So I've had him for 19 years and I have lots of stories to fill in. But I'll let Laura take it for a little bit and talk about maybe somebody that stands out in her eyes.
Well, I just want to point out the what you just pointed out without meaning to, which is we ask horses to come into our human world. And we need to honor how freaking perceptive they are. They are picking up on our energy and our vibes. And that is the level of awareness that we have to have when we're taking on or when we're in the presence of a horse that has been really traumatized. You know, horses in the wild, I don't think have a concept of what a throwaway horse is. He picked that up from people and his experience with people.
Mm.
So when I approach a horse that I know has had it rough, my vibes are completely show me where you're at. You can do no wrong in this situation. We're going to do everything we can to help you. And you're going to let me know where all your limits are, and I'm going to honor them. And when you approach it like that, you will be amazed at what you can accomplish. I got my start in horses at the rescue where MJ was born. And we got a little stallion in who had been owned by a pro football player in the Seattle area who had a brain injury. And his idea of a good time was hog tying these horses, leaving them to starve for half a day, and then coming back, beating them to within an inch of their lives, and they found many not alive ones on the property, and then turning them out to a pasture for a few days and then doing it again. Horrific. This little boy had, and I shouldn't even say little boy because he was a little Arab, but he was like 35 years old horse that was enduring this. I have no idea what his life looked like before, but he had no reason to be anything but horrible to us. He had no reason to expect anything but horror from us. And as soon as we approached him with lightness in our hearts, with the promise that that was over, it was like a switch flipped. This little horse absolutely blossomed. Unfortunately, he got out with another stallion. They got in a fight, and a steak-sized chunk of his rump got ripped out by the other stallion. And this rescue had a policy of not gelding old horses, so there was a few stallions on the property. I don't know that I would necessarily hold to that policy, given all the things that I saw over the years there. But anyway, so we had to clean and maintain this really nasty cut. There was nothing to stitch because it was just too big of an area. So we had to hose it and clean it and put salve on it. This little dude stood like a stone, even though it could have been absolutely triggering to his PSD. And not every horse is going to be as quickly welcoming of your help. Some of them are going to be angry. Some of them are going to take forever to trust. Some of them are going to always be on the edge of whether or not they're going to trust you. But it's really important that you let them show you where they're at and what they need. If we would have approached him and said, "Oh, you're so traumatized," and, like constantly put that back on him, it might have been a different story. But we approached him as a completely fresh start, and he took it. And he's still alive, I think, which is, my numbers in my head are crunching, and I'm like, this guy is not a young horse. But he's a happy little guy. So when you have a horse that's had trauma, you cannot be attached to an outcome of where you and that horse are going to go. You are on a journey together, and you're going to take it one step at a time, and it can lead you in some really amazing places.
Stop second guessing yourself. Feeling stuck with your horse? Second guessing every decision? wondering if you're really doing what's best. You're not alone. Most horse owners unknowingly make mistakes that lead to frustration, resistance, and even hidden health issues. That's why we're hosting the Secrets to the Horse Human Experience you've always wanted, so you can gain the clarity, confidence, and knowledge to make the best choices for your horse. Sign up for this live event now at the link in the show notes and start transforming your partnership today. It truly can. I have worked with several traumatized horses that I'm called in from clients with, but I think for the sake of this episode, I'm going to stick with Gino because Gino has a heart of gold. And Gino has raised all of our orphan babies and even Perone, who was not orphaned, but Gino was part of the herd when Perone was born. And Gino just takes really good care of them. He wants so badly, which I see in a lot of traumatized horses. But what I see in these horses' eyes, in the depth of their eyes, when you can look beyond the fear or the glazed over or what to the unknown eye seems like a calm horse. When you can look into the depths of these horses' eyes, you see a gentle soul who wants to connect and wants to trust and wants to believe. Horses are probably animals in general are so incredibly forgiving, and I believe it's because they live in the present moment. Doesn't mean that they're not traumatized and they don't have their triggers. That's another day for the autonomic nervous system and how our brains work. But like Laura was saying, if you can show them that you're not what they expect, that you are gentle and you are kind and you are caring and you accept the horse in front of you, no matter what that horse is going through in that moment, you can reach that heart inside that wants to trust and wants to love and wants to connect. It took me months of working with Gino, just hanging out with him, and I had two other horses with him that trusted me with their lives, helped show him that he was in a safe place. But like I said, I've had him almost 19 years, and myself and one other person are the only ones that can actually catch him and halter him. And once I halter him, he trusts me and we've gone through cancer and having part of his ear amputated. We've gone through multiple times at the vet. We stand for the farrier, but any sudden movement at any time, he comes out of his skin. But he's always checking in with me. So as long as I'm there, he has the courage. He and I I used to study Pirelli natural horsemanship and used to go to the university in Colorado every summer. And I took Gino and he was scared shitless. I mean, it was a 2-day trip there, 2-day trip back, 14 days there. And I watched this horse come out of his shell while we were there. This was after he nearly killed he and I on a trail ride in the snow in the forest of the Sierra Mountains. Just totally lost his mind. I missed all the cues that he was overstimulated. And one slight move to brush my nose in the cold weather sent that horse so far into his sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, that there was no getting to him. But when I took him to the Pirelli ranch, it was like, if he connects with one of the professionals here and they want him,
Mm.
as their own personal horse, I will leave here with an empty trailer. And I got so many rope burns those first 48 hours there that it wasn't even funny because we work on the playground out with other horses. Everybody knew when I said loose horse, they knew it was going to be Gino. And Gino would always run back to his pen. He was scared to death to get drinks out of the communal water troughs. He was scared to have anybody look at him. He was a mess. By day 5, he was greeting all the horses with
Oh,
excitement, and all the people, like, look, you can touch me, you can touch me. He could go up to the communal water trough and drink with people. I could walk him on a loose line, but we had 2 professionals there assess him, and we all came up with the decision, including Pat Pirelli, that Gino was one of those traumatized horses beyond ever being able to be ridden, that
yeah.
we would not be able to ever reach that part of him. And I made the decision at that point that he was coming home with me, and he was going to be a pet.
Yeah. And that is really important awareness. Not all horses are going to be riding horses, especially if they have gone through trauma. And you have to be ready to accept that if you want to truly be able to rehab your horse. If the goal is constantly, I'm going to ride you, I'm going to ride you, I'm going to ride you, and you're super focused on that goal instead of focused on seeing what's happening in front of you, you're going to miss the signals. You're going to end up having the experience that Cindy had with poor Gino in the Sierra Mountains. And if you do that enough times, you're re-traumatizing your traumatized horse
Not to mention, you're putting both your lives at risk.
at risk. Not to say that you're not going to make mistakes. I've made plenty of mistakes where I, pushed a traumatized horse over threshold because I dropped something. I asked too much. That kind of thing is going to happen. But the mindset of it needs to be, oh, shoot, that was my bad. Roll it back. Not, I keep pushing because I need to be able to get in the saddle of this horse.
And if you find yourself owning a horse that you didn't know that has PTSD, there's help out there for you. There's people like Laura and I who understand and can recognize and can help both the person and the horse. I mean, one of the things I do often is I have a clinic called Finding Our Way Back After Trauma. And it's about women who have gone through some kind of trauma, simply coming off their horse, watching somebody else come off their horse. Trauma happens to horses and humans, living beings, in different ways. We can have 3 horses witness the same experience and only one walk away worse than they were watching it. We can have 3 different women and horses witness or go through a traumatic experience and have all of them have their own form of PTSD and have only one have it or none. You don't know what is going to be a trauma for each individual. But if you find yourself in that place, don't go to just a regular trainer. You have to find somebody who specializes and has, I mean, like, I don't know if I would say I specialize in traumatized horses because I take on all kinds of horses. So for me, when you say specialize in a traumatized horse, that's all you're doing. That is your niche. That is what you work on. I work on the relationship.
Yeah.
I work on the partnership. I work on the understanding the psychology of horse and human dynamic. But that's different than just taking your horse to the local trainer because your horse is misbehaving. Remember, we're going to circle back. We're always going to remind you that every behavior is communication. And if you have a horse that's all of a sudden misbehaving, you have to be willing to explore and find out why. And if you can't do that on your own, please know there's people like Laura and I out there, and for crying out loud, you're listening to our podcast, so contact us.
Yeah.
Don't go searching. We can communicate, we can watch videos, we can do Zooms, we can help you from afar.
Here's the thing about the unfortunate reality that your local trainer is existing within right now is we are a results-driven society. We are a money-driven society. Your local trainer, whether they are conscious about this or not, has been driven to mold their career and their program and the way they approach horses around how they can get results the fastest. So they can put money on their table and they can get you what you want before you fire them.
And they can keep their
They
reputation.
can keep their reputation. Cindy and I have been lucky enough and brave enough to see this and say, we're going to open up to an online space where we don't have to be under those constraints because our pool of people is so much larger. The reason why Cindy can say she specializes in trauma is because somebody can come to her and say, I don't care where I end up with this horse other than happy and healthy and safe. I want you to get me as far as I can go, happy and healthy and safe. And that is the new era of horse owners that are coming on board that we are so excited to serve. You can come to me and say, I want to get my horse as sound and strong of body as they can possibly be. But I will love them no matter where we end up. And I can help you figure out what that's going to look like and how you're going to do that. Whereas my poor farm vet has to come in and everybody's demanding that they fix their horses, but they won't spend money on imaging and they won't do the rehab and they won't do the work. And that is the unfortunate environment that the local service provider of horses is stuck in. But you don't have to be stuck in that with your horse. And if you truly want to love and provide for a horse with a traumatic past, the way to do it is to say, I want you and I to be the best we can be and go as far as we can, but we have no idea what that looks like, and that's okay. Is your horse trying to tell you something? Your horse is always communicating, but are you listening? If you've ever struggled with tension, confusion, or resistance, it's not random. Your horse is trying to tell you something. In the Secrets to the Horse-Human Experience You've Always Wanted, we'll show you how to decode your horse's signals, fix miscommunication, and create a true partnership built on trust and understanding. Don't miss this live event. Save your spot now at the link in the show notes.
%100. And we also realize, I realize, from, just years of doing what I do, is that for some people, realizing that they've taken on a horse that now is presenting as a traumatized horse that's going to need rehabilitation. And that wasn't what they signed up for.
Mm-hmm.
They love the horse, but they don't have the resources or the mindset to invest and make that kind of a commitment. And there is no judgment on that. We honor the fact that you can say, I want to do right by this horse. And that means not being my horse because I am fulfilling a dream. And my dream is to have a horse that I can get on and we're super bonded and we trust each other and we do this, we do trail obstacles, we do trail riding, we do trail trial competitions, we do endurance, whatever it is your dream is. And this horse is turning out not to be that horse. We honor that
Yeah.
because there are places for that horse. There are sanctuaries, there are equine assisted therapy programs, equine assisted learning programs, where that horse will be met where they're at and they will be participants. They will be valuable assets in that environment because of their trauma, because of what they can help others who, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the equine assisted therapy programs out there, but they're therapist and horse specialist teams or equine. What I do in my women retreat programs is equine assisted growth and development. So there's no therapy there, it's self-development and empowerment, and there's no riding these horses. There's often no handling of these horses.
They often get to completely decide whether or not they participate. And
Well,
there's no problem if they choose not to.
yes, exactly. I mean, and Laura is like, not often. Every day that a program takes place in these facilities, the facilitator will ask her herd, who is going to help me today with this program? And what's miraculous about it is that it's always the perfect horses that stand up. Now, how do I know this to be true? We're going to go back to Gino. After I returned in 2010, I got him in 2007. After I returned from Pirelli's in 2010 with him, realizing that he will never be able to completely recover from the trauma. I was working with a dear friend of mine who's a psychotherapist, and I was certified in equine assisted therapy work. And we spent the summer doing 3 days a week, all day long, equine psychotherapy sessions. And during those sessions, Gino would always go and hide behind a big pine tree we had in their corral that connected the round pen that we used for sessions. He would go and hide. He'd get away from everybody. Yet we had this one little girl who was an only child of parents who were in the process of divorcing. She was 8 years old. We had this big black thoroughbred named Magic, and he was our main horse. And he was interesting because he was off the racetrack. He was 20, and we were told he was 25, but he was actually 30 when we got him. And he must have had a starting gate accident. And so one side of his head on his temple area was caved in, and that side of his face was full of varicose veins. And the other side of his face was absolutely beautiful. And he was this big, beautiful black horse. And he worked with so many people, amazing sessions. Well, this little girl, he couldn't get to connect with him. And we couldn't get her to stop being anything but the very good little girl. And so after the first session, okay, great. The second session she came. Gino stood halfway in his corral watching the session. The third session she came. Gino is up against the fence. The fourth session she came, Gino saw the car come in. So we had a session prior. He's hiding behind the tree. When she's pulling in, he's now up against the round pen fence, watching her get out of the car. And he's in the session she's in the session with Magic, and my therapist friend is saying, I don't know what to do with her. I can't find what we call an access point. Like, how can we help her to start feeling comfortable enough? And Magic was having the same struggle. No matter how much he'd hug her and walk with her and let her groom him, she couldn't find it. And I was watching Gino and I said, have you noticed Gino? And she said, yeah, what's he doing? And so I checked in with him and I'm like, what is it, buddy, about this little girl? Because as soon as she would leave, he'd go behind the tree for the next client.
Oh,
So it was definitely this client. And I said, Gino, what is it? And he said, trauma. And I just got flushed with goosebumps remembering that day. And I went, oh my God. And I told my partner, next week, take her to the office. Don't bring her here and talk to her about abuse.
mm.
She called me that following week after the session and she said she's being sexually abused by her uncle. And I still cry to this day when I think about that. And I went out that night and I sat down with Gino and a big bucket of grain between my legs. And I said, buddy, what you did today saved this little girl's life. And I promise you that for the rest of your life, you have a home. You are safe. You will never experience abuse because what you did today was save that little girl's life. And that was 2011. And now we have people come to the ranch all the time to see the wild Mustangs. And we all go out and we greet the horses. We have teenage girls come. We have women groups come. And there is only a select group of women that Gino will go to the fence and literally let them pet on him. Or he will walk up to when they're loose in the pasture with all the horses. And those are the women, those are the children, those are people like me who still suffer from some form of trauma. And so I share this vulnerable, raw story with you guys to help you understand that each and every one of us has a unique gift to offer the world, no matter how broken we are, no matter how broken these horses are. Let us help you or anybody you know. Let us help find the perfect place for even the broken ones.
And here's the really amazing other side of the coin of you didn't sign up for this and you don't have to see it through. You cannot help a horse overcome trauma without reckoning with your own.
Good point.
And since we've talked about some universally worldly spiritual concept in this episode, I am a firm believer that the universe delivers to me what I need when I need it. So if you have found yourself with a horse with trauma, sit with why for a minute. Be vulnerable enough with yourself to say, is there something there? Is this an opportunity presented in a very strange way? And we just keep coming back to the magic of the horses is not in riding them.
No.
And they can change your life. MJ came to me when I was in a very broken part of my life. And in a very unconventional way, called me to step up and get over it. And I happen to be the personality type that thrives under that. And there's very few personality types that thrive under that. That was not an accident. You know, sometimes they say your animals that have crossed the rainbow bridge send you the next one. I
Absolutely.
firmly believe that DT was like, she needs to get back in the game. And this is how it's going to happen. So, what is the universe providing for you in this strange bundle of I found myself with a traumatized horse?
It could be a variety of gifts, you know. Sometimes it's the opportunity to experience your own trauma in a safe environment.
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is that we connect in a deeper level because they touch us where we're wounded. And sometimes we don't want or we can't look at that wounding in ourselves. It's too painful. But we find that access point that I mentioned earlier in being able to help them in their wounding in a way that somebody who's not been wounded can't. Or it might be like Laura, you know, get over it. There's others out there that need your love and need your help and need your gifts. And in other ways, you might be the bridge. You might be the one who guides that horse from where it was to where its next person is waiting for them.
Yeah.
And they had to come through you. Like Laura said, the universe is providing us divine opportunities all the time. So you might be that gatekeeper
And
that opens
as the
the.
gatekeeper, I guarantee you get clearer on exactly what you want.
You do. You do. And I guarantee you as well that every being that crosses your path, that comes into your space, that grabs your attention, they have a gift to offer you as well as you have a gift to offer them. And you may see it in that moment. You may feel a spark of recognition. You may feel a stirring of uncomfortableness. You may feel nothing at all. And in 5 years from now, they pop into your mind and you're like, oh my God,
Mm.
this is what that was all about. But it's being willing to be present in the moment with an open heart and an open mind of awareness of what is being presented to you in that moment. And can you say yes? You know? And it doesn't mean a forever yes, it means yes in the moment.
Yeah.
And it goes back to where Laura started this whole conversation of we are all about meeting the horse who's standing in front of us. He may not be the horse that was there yesterday, and he may not be the same horse I see tomorrow. But can you be that person in the moment that that horse needs you to be? So if you have any questions about the topics covered in this episode, send us a message on our Facebook page, Holistic Horsemanship and Husbandry, and we will answer your question in a post on our page. You will be anonymous. We'll just take the question and provide our input, and we want to do it on the post so that we can all learn and grow together, because nobody knows everything. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. We want to remind you that we'll be here every second and fourth Tuesday of the month, following the golden rule. Have a plan, but always be willing to be flexible. Don't forget to connect with us using the links in the show notes below.
If you learned something new today, had an aha, or walked away with a valuable nugget, You can say thanks by leaving us a 5-star review on whatever platform you're listening on.